Hey everyone, welcome to a new episode of the Forever Fast podcast. I'm your host, Ron Jamin. Thank you very much for tuning in. You can watch this episode for free on YouTube and listen on SoundCloud, where you can also download it for free, so check that out. I'll have a link for you in the description. Boy, what a weird time. The fate of the furious indeed. You've probably seen all the reports. Is Fast X Part 2, Fast and Furious 11 going to happen? Especially with Fast X ending on a cliffhanger. And pretty extreme. It's kind of like, a lot of loose ends to tie up, as I've mentioned before. But reports say, the budget for Fast X was so high, about $340 million, not including marketing. And the studio They want to make Fast 11, but for a lower budget. Because I'm not even sure if Fast X made its budget back, including marketing and that. But, it's just so strange. And obviously, my last podcast, The Weight of the Furious, it's not poking fun at anybody. The Rock dropped a ton of weight. Vin had put on quite a bit. So if they're going to do this, it's the bridge film, they haven't announced any updates. And because it's really a trilogy to finish it off. You got Fast X, the Hobbs bridge film, and then Fast and Furious 11. But according to Jason Momoa, he says there's no script, or he hasn't seen one. And what gets me is that when studios greenlight a movie and there's no script, nothing locked in, it's what are you basing this off of? Especially if you want a lower budget, it's how can we make this? And, even $200 million, But anyways, with Justin Lin dropping out and the pandemic and that when they're making Fast X, I'd still like to hear what happened with Lin, what set him off. Because just a few days into production, he stepped down as director. He stayed on as producer and got credit for the story. But what's his role with this one? Or if he did have issues with Vin, maybe he could direct, the Hobbs spinoff. Because I can see Hobbs and Shaw reuniting, calling on each other. But if that's, the only issue, just working with Vin, because he said, and again, people's weight is their own business, but throughout Fast X, you could see Vin's weight was fluctuating, because he'd have a double chin, but then he'd be lean and ripped, and didn't really match up very well. And, the whole controversy, Tyrese, The Rock, about showing up on time and stuff, but we'll see. If they kill Hobbs off screen, I'm going to be pretty pissed. A lot of loose ends to tie up. And, I was thinking about it. And the last Mission Impossible, not the final, because I don't think Tom Cruise is done, but last as in most recent one. In the end, it wasn't that's a beautiful send-off, well done. And I was thinking, with the Fast and the Furious, we don't need a solid ending, because there are just too many loose ends. And meaning that to wrap it up in one movie, I just don't see it being possible for them to wrap up all the storylines and that. These characters don't need that. Once they finish everything, with Cypher, with Dante, and all that, that'll be interesting, because we'll see who survives. But problem is, nobody stays dead in these movies. People just come back. And Brian already had the perfect send-off. I like how Lin brought him back at the end of 9. We didn't actually see Brian, but his car rolling up. And it's okay, that's good, but let's just leave it there. But now it's Dante's going to go after Brian and Mia. they're going to Portugal, right, with the kids. They're all going to meet there. Mr. Nobody's going to show up in a chopper. I'm surprised they didn't write them back to back, or all three, at the Hobbs movie. But I'm not saying they haven't written anything, but as far as getting, scripts approved in that. But Mission Impossible, I mean, that ending with Gabriel, to build him up like that and then have him die a cartoon death, kind of. That would have been good for, like, the guy in the other plane, hit the nutsack and then crack the skull. Like, it's kind of funny, hitting the nuts in that on the tail, but then hitting his head and be like, oh wow. And then Gabriel and Ethan, because when Gabriel's in the plane, it's like, who is this guy? He's yelling and it's like he did coke or something. It's not the same character, but if there is a different director for 11, because I know Lewis is still attached, I do worry about things like that. But thankfully, despite all the different directors, I mean, our heroes, our team, they've all remained the same. They all have their roles, like the funny ones, serious, and, heartfelt and all that. But I just don't think, it's not really building up to that kind of a finale where our characters walk into the sunset. I'm just not concerned about that, because I don't know how it should end. Like, how do you please everyone? Fan service, because it's like, all these movies have wrapped up with a nice bow. And except for X, obviously, but I just don't think anybody's going to believe that Dom and Little B are dead. Because they could start it out, at a funeral or something, and we don't see what actually happens to them. They're presumed dead, but again, there's just, how do you write the finale for this? I mean, we got Tess and Elena's sister in the hospital, so I don't know if they're going to be written out of 11, if we're going to hear from them. Tess's dad, Mr. Nobody. I mean, he's been missing for years now. Owen Shaw, what's going to happen with him? Cypher, her backstory. The director of Edeon, which I think I would write it as Dante. Because when he said that reunion with Hobbs and Shaw, it's like, oh, you can make that work. You wouldn't have to retcon anything, because they could create new scenes for flashbacks if they needed to. Like I said, Brian and Mia, the remaining Fast family, everybody who's helped out Dom and team. Like, everybody going to see DK, Sean, Twinkie, Earl, Ray, all of them. And Jacob and Elena, were they holograms when they died? Kind of like the Han thing. Because I'm still trying to figure something out. Because I don't think that Jacob was helping Dante in any way. But they're going through the tunnel and he says, Dante has B. It's like, wait, when did Dom tell Jacob Dante's name? Because he was still trying to figure everything out. And obviously they had conversations on the phone or something. Because he said, we got to head to that spot if you could pick up Little B. But even Jacob, it's like, oh, he'll be back. He's fine. And Elena, it's like, well, we know that, they got Little B out of the plane in the Fate of the Furious. But what if Elena's alive? Because then it's like, where do you go from there? The plane crash with our heroes, our team at the end, it's like, so let me guess, they were never on board. Or somebody had written in some video or something, a comment saying if you look closely you can see the hatch open in the back, the ramp or whatever, and I didn't spot that. But if they survive that, good for them, but it's like, okay. Everything, Giselle coming back, of course. I mean, Owen survived the runway massacre, and looked like he was in a coma. He had a lot of wounds in that, a lot of scars, but Fate of the Furious, he's back. Ames, I want to see him throw down. We got to see some fights with that guy. Alan Richardson, I mean, he's built like a brick house. And it'd be a shame if they didn't do that. And of course the agency, because it's like, do they know where Mr. Nobody is? His location? How did Ames work his way up? It's just introducing characters and, the last round in that. It's like, it's kind of risky because we don't know much about them. Ames and Tess are talking like they've been in all the movies, and it's like, no, they're new. Dante spent most or all their money, I assume, hiring all those criminals around the world to help track him down in that. And so if they get their money back somehow, it'll be like, of course, but it's just interesting. I don't know, because I love, all the movies in that. But in my review of Fast X, I point out it's, full of nonsense in that. But I like how they retcon everything with Fast 5. But let me know what you think. How do you think it should end? I just finished this mission and go back to LA. They always talk about like, oh, we're going back, street racing and that. It's like, well, we've been in LA. That's not the issue. And street racing, it's like, well, there's no real time for that. Fast cars, furious villains, like that's good enough. Now I could see 11 ending with the race, of course, but it'd be too close to the send-off at the end of 7 for Brian. Because they do that again, it's just like, really, guys? But I don't know, it's just like the Mission Impossible movies, like I was talking about. Those, they were never set up for a big finale. Because you remember in 4, Ghost Protocol, we're introduced to Jeremy Renner's character. I think his name is Brandt. And it was rumored that he's going to be taking over for Ethan, for Tom Cruise's role. But then he has like the Avengers and these other movies. And whatever happened with that, I don't know. But clearly, Cruise wasn't done. And The Final Reckoning, I haven't even watched the whole movie, actually. I just watched some clips, and then, of course, the ending. They just nodded at each other, and it's kind of like, you guys sure this is it? Because it's never about, like, it's never so personal. It's just about the missions. So I think it should have wrapped up where Ethan is presumed dead. And something like, in like a spin-off or when they reboot it, at the end, Ethan comes in and helps save the day. And like, we know it's him, but we don't actually see him kind of thing. Like he's still out there. Because where do you send this character off to? Into the sunset? Like, Julia. That didn't work out. And with Ilsa, with her character, I had to think about that for a second. Like, her death obviously left no impact on them. So fans are pretty upset about that, but there's just so much going on in these movies. It's kind of like, well, just finish this mission, and then, people go their separate ways, and then we see, where we'll go from there. If you want to do spin-offs, have them come back and, the reboot or whatever, but there's just way too much to just too many loose ends, I say. But let me know what you think. How do you think it should end? Do you have any ideas? When do you think we'll see Fast 11 and, the Bridge movie with Hobbs? Let me know. Leave some comments. I'd love to hear from you. And you can download this episode for free on SoundCloud. If you're already here, welcome. And rate, review, share, like, follow, all that fun stuff. I do appreciate it. And I will see you next time. Ride or die.